Go.
Hashtag sorry, not sorry, but welcome back to season 3. Yeah, with a dwellers below, dwellers below.
Ladies and gentlemen, and the rest, good morning, good evening, whatever it is, whenever you might be listening to this episode of The Dwellers Below, where today, 1.5 has dropped and we're excited. So we're going to talk about what that means for the orcs and goblins. I'm Warboss Jabe, and today we're going to get stuck in with the boys. Speaking of, I've got here with me today, just below me, that old egg. What's happening, my man?
How we doing? Excited to talk about armies I haven't played in a little while, but have had to think about a whole lot.
Now, Elle's here, baby. And then Danny, welcome, man.
I am also excited to talk about armies that I absolutely hate playing against. So
why are you here?
I'm just here. I'm here to help you with your tech issues.
Well, thus far that's been very helpful. Thank you. Thank you kindly. So 1.5 has dropped. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been churning stuff over in the brain and writing lists and rereading things and making new discoveries. It's a very exciting time. It's kind of, I think, my favorite time in Warhammer. You know, when it's not solved yet. It's fresh. There are unknowns, and you get to do the analysis yourself without it just being a meta that you know. So, what have you guys? I just want to talk a little bit about the meta, and we'll use that because that informs what it is that's going to happen into orcs and goblins. But to talk about that, we need to talk a little bit about the big shifts that have happened in 1.5. Now, at this point...
What is 1.5, Jabe, for those who might not be familiar with the online terminology for some of X Workshop's downloadable documents?
Question. So there's just been a FAQ and an errata changed, and there's that much change in the errata that it's been bandied around as being the old world edition 1.5 because there are some very significant changes in there. If you're not aware of these, then please go check them out, and the rest of this video will probably make a whole lot more sense. So do that beforehand. Go check it out. But we're going to talk about the big ones. So obviously magic is the big one. What happened was before a level 4 got +4 to cast, a level 2 got +2 to cast. Now you get a level 4 gets +2 to cast, as does a level 3, and a level 1 and 2 only get +1. So that means that magic is going to be a lot harder to get off, and your level 4 isn't going to be as dominant over 1s and 2s as they would have been previously, because there's only a +1 difference to cast. And so I haven't actually played games yet with the new system, but magic has changed a lot, and a lot of the spells in a lot of the laws are a little bit tricky to reach. What are you thinking about what's going to happen with magic and the meta going forward, Chris?
So I'm sort of torn because on the one hand, not only do the level 4s get lower casting costs, but their opponents get lower dispelling results on their spells. So when you do actually cast a spell, when you do meet whatever the bar is, it's still going to be just as likely to go off as it was before. You'll fail more often, but your opponents will dispel less, as a general rule. Things like magic resistance are going to complicate
much
that
more
further. But the kind of core function of like you versus your opponent, I don't think will play quite as big a role as it's been suggested, because both of you are taking, for the most part, the same hit on your dispelling modifiers or your casting dispelling modifiers.
So the bit that I'm thinking is, especially as I'm thinking about orcs and goblins, is and probably just for any...
Do you ever think about armies that aren't orcs and goblins?
Only as so I can figure out how to beat them as orcs and goblins. But you're going to want plus to cast so that you can more reliably reach what you need to for your spell. And so there's now a premium on those items. And since in the orcs and goblins list, the Staff of Badum, previously I played with a couple of times, but wasn't that great. And so what that is I think it's 55 points. And I'll bring that up here, actually. I forgot that we were actually sharing. But this Staff of Badum down here, this guy. So he's 55 points, and it gives you plus D3 to cast. Now you blow up, or the item blows up and does a big boom. Well, it's not. See, it doesn't seem to be working. Sometimes that happens, and we'll just click something else. Yeah, and then go back here. So plus D3 to your casting result. If you fail by getting a double 1 or a double 6, then big pipe template and everything friend or foe takes strength 6 AP 1 here, right? So this is a great way to be boosting up your casting level, and you're way more likely to not only get the spell, but it's that much harder for the opponent to dispel. And my thinking on the magic meta is that there's a lot more ways to get pluses to cast than there are to get pluses to dispel. Like I can't think of that many. And so with Cathay Beastman Chaos in particular, all getting so much in terms of pluses to cast, I think you'll probably see some armies that are just like really magic heavy. And so I don't know. I don't know exactly how it's going to shape up, but I think you want pluses to cast. And the Staff of Badum is a really good way to do that.
It feels like it splits the field in a way where it's less of a plug and play. Like in regular roles back in the day of first edition, it was just you take a level 4, you're sorted. You've got your great bonuses to both, and you just like that's obligatory. You do that. Now you have to think about it. You have to say, am I going to spend the points on it? Is it worth it for this? What can my army do? And there'll be haves and have-nots. Like you said, like the plus D3, that's a massive bonus to cast. And there are some armies that have easy access to very good magic resistance. Like it means it's going to be more of a rock, paper, scissors in terms of who has what ability and whether you choose to build it or not. And I think that's exciting because it makes list writing difficult.
Yeah, and it's more rock, scissor, paper stuff, which will be interesting when it plays out in tournaments. So yeah. Anyway, so magic I think is a big change. I want to get. We'll talk about Orcs and Goblin magic a little bit later. The Law of the War, I think it got better. But other big changes, I think for Orcs and Goblins in particular, is the infantry changes. So just you get a +1 to your combat resolution for having a higher unit strength than them if you are infantry. Which is pretty good for cheap night goblins. Now, a lot of the ridden monsters, only the Chaos Dragon really gets close order now, and so infantry better again with that. And then they fight in 2 ranks when charged, which could also be pretty good if you're a bunch of Black Orcs wielding great weapons. And then Black Orcs, so I think they got a lot better. Black Orcs now. Thoughts, boys?
I think some of the fighting in an extra rank I think is only relevant on a few units. Black Orcs is maybe one of them, but I think it'll help less on the whole than the changes to static combat resolution for the infantry units. There's a secret one as well, which wasn't included in there, which is the change to the challenge rules. Previously, you would always get all of your attacks in a challenge. Now, if you kill the opponent in the challenge at 1 initiative step, you lose the attacks that you would make at other initiative steps. So it's much harder to rack up maximum overkill in a challenge, which combined with losing close order, infantry units gaining an outnumbering bonus, it's way harder for a big monster with a character to go into an infantry unit and actually win the fight at all.
Yeah. So what you're hoping here for, particularly the Black Orc, I think it is on Wyvern, is what is it? A 2-inch charge, I believe, is the ideal spot to be in, because then you only get the +2 initiative bonus with the great weapon, which puts you at a 1-inch charge, because then it'll put you at the same initiative as the Wyvern. So you just have to.
I'll tell you the bigger problem with the Wyvern. When it comes to this one is he gets 1 attack with the venomous tail, which I'm just popping on screen now, which is strikes first. So they challenge with the unit champ. You go, bang. It never does anything, but I'm convinced now it will.
Now it will. That's right.
And then your Wyvern only has 2 attacks, which is a good chance that kills, and then your Warboss goes. So the example is if you fly into, say, this unit of Night Goblins that I'm just building on screen now, this unit of Night Goblins, assume you have them 6 wide, 5 deep. gives you 3 ranks because Night Goblins are Horde, so that's 3. Then you've got your banner. Then you're going to have close order, and then you're probably going to outnumber them in infantry. And so that's 6 static without having put any war banners or done anything on it. So now the dragon flies in, challenges, or we, as this brave Night Goblin champion, decides that he's going to take on that big bad boy and impress all his mates. This is a challenge. Dragon, whatever goes first, the dragon, if it's a great weapon, or the lord, if it's not a great weapon with a lance or something, kills the champion, gets like 3 overkill, maybe 3 overkill, and now the Night Goblins win by 2, and they outnumber the dragon, and that's just a 107 point unit of Night Goblins. That's just 30 of them. Sure, you're probably actually going to have your fanatics in there. As you actually use it, and then that's the standard Night Goblin mob, 30 Night Goblins, so that you can release 3 fanatics, probably going to array them 6 by 5, and now it's worth putting the standard Muso and boss on there. So I think that challenge thing made a massive difference, especially to high unit strength potential like Orcs and Goblins.
And this is a great illustration right there, Jabe, of the whole brave new world we live in, which is great. Which is players that would previously just push dragon at anything and win, now have to actually find different solutions. Wait, Chris?
Oh, no, I was indicating that I am push
prime
dragon
offender number 1. Yeah, absolutely.
Dragons is good dragons.
I thought what you were going to say is, unfortunately, I think now the answer might just be push 2 dragons at things and win.
Well, so, I think it might be the answer. That very well could be the answer. Send your dragon in with a friend or support him, That does make sense.
For those of us who've been around for a while and played 7th and 8th edition, that was always the way to unlock your dragons, was to have a backup flying character so you could tag team them into things. So that's been around for a while. And there's other big flying monsters that are just as much of a problem as before. Necrosphinxes, Warpfire dragons can't get challenged out, but still have the mobility and damage output that they did before. Although they lose close order, so in the heads up versus infantry, they're a bit worse, but still going to be, I think, a very powerful presence on the table.
Oh, they're going to be. They'll still be big. Except that for the rest of this video, we're going to assume that we're doing match play. And so you're not going to see the ultra-tuned Star Dragons and Chaos Dragons that we did see before. They've been toned down quite a lot by virtue of only being able to take 500 points in a single model. And so, yes, there's the new Cathay stuff, which is certainly pretty interesting. But anyway, so I think that's a big change, the challenge thing. You're absolutely right, Chris. Then other big stuff that we want to go. We don't want to go into all of the details, but other big changes.
Let's jump into the O and G, because I want to find out via the units and via the combos.
Before we get stuck into that, can I just say, we really called this with the 1.5 thing. I think in some of our earlier Old World episodes, we were talking about the initial release as feeling a bit half-baked, or that we were maybe doing the beta testing for Games Workshop. It seems like that process has now been completed, and they've outsourced their quality control to the community, and with a match play guide and an errata, seem to have made some moves that I think are being received pretty well on the whole.
This whole thing's
not heard
amazing.
Much complaining about the whole package, even if individual lines or 1 or 2 things here and there maybe wouldn't be what we would have done. The package as a whole is great, and I really like the direction the game's gone in. Now that we've put in all the hours and a year and a half of testing for them.
Yeah, I would say a huge congratulations is in order to us, the play testers.
And to GW, to be fair, the matched play guide, the FAQ, the errata, most of the changes in there being, I think, good, most all of them, and cumulatively enough to shift the meta. Then dropping Cathay, what an exciting time for the old world. It's amazing. Now,
it's more than that, though, as well. The last tournament I played, Wood Elves and Beastmen books weren't actually allowed because they'd been released to close before the event. So the next time I play, there's going to be 3 new armies, a match play guide, and a massive errata that's dropped. Yeah, as you said, this is the biggest excitement level, I think, since the game dropped.
It's Christmas in the old world, boys. It's great. Now, the way we're going to do this today is we're not going to go through everything line by line. I'm going to assume people who are interested in Orcs and Goblins know a little bit about how they played before, and we'll just talk about whether they're viable now, and if so, why, and what caused it. So the first thing is Orcs. They got a little bit better because of the parry rule, which means that if you have a hand weapon and shield, you get +1 to your armor save. Now, because they had light armor and shield, now they go to a 4-up save, which I think is quite a significant difference from a 5-up. And so there is a world that you could use these as a kind of an anvil because you are tough 4. Then you put biggins on them. And so we'd be taking... shields, we'd be taking biggins. Now, biggins make you guys +1 strength and give you armor bane. And so this is the only armor piercing that we've got that it would be native to the unit. And otherwise they'll struggle to do damage. When they charge, they'll have choppers, which means they get another armor piercing -1 and to re-roll 1s onto wound, right? So they'll be AP 1 with armor bane biggins. That still isn't going to rock the world at strength 4. And so it's not great. Now, sure, someone could charge into you and you could have 2 ranks doing that. Maybe you could stick some additional hand weapons on them because you get to choose now whether you use that or the shield. But by the time we've done that, now we've got shield, additional hand weapons, and biggins. We're at 9 points a model. And so the problem with them is that Black Orcs aren't that much more and do everything that we just spoke about way better. And
have base Orcs made it into any of your lists, Jay?
Not except in a little 5-pack when, thank you, Chris, this was courtesy of you, and you just run them cheap. There's 5 Orcs of 25 points. You array them in marching columns, so they're 2 by 3. And so they can march right up, and you can use them as kind of little redirectors and stuff. So they cost, 25 points for a unit that can march 12 and then redirect. Now, I don't use them that much, but that is a niche little use that you can do with them. The other thing that you could do with them, given that things fight in 2 ranks now, is there is an argument to be made for going something like 14 and then sticking additional hand weapons and biggins and all that sort of stuff on them. Personally, I don't think it's the right way to play. It does feel good. The only other use really for them, which is quite significant, is your orc casters, when they are with 10 orcs or more, get +1 to their cast, which is huge. But they also get that with Black Orcs. So you can stick your caster in your Black Orcs. It does create problems because now you've got a unit that you want to fight with a caster that you were just putting him in there for the +1 to cast. So it can be too efficient and then create problems. So there is a world where you take 10 orcs and then, or 12 if you want a little bit more of a buffer, you stick warbows on them and then stick them in skirmish mode. And then for 60 points, you've got a casting platform for your orc. And that's not a bad thing, but that is 60 points.
I think those are basically the 2 use cases for orc mobs. The little units of 5 for 25 points. It's about the cheapest unit you can put on the table in the entire game.
Yep.
And it gets in the way of units that don't fly and gives you an extra deployment. And yeah, just a smallish unit to give you a wizard +1 to cast, and being able to move into skirmish formation and not require you to take a Black Orc character as well might be the way that the list fits together nicely. So we saw some of the Orc and Goblin lists in the previous original version of the game weren't taking Black Orcs if they wanted multiple wizards, if they wanted a big Night Goblin Death Star. Whilst you might not do the Death Star anymore, the utility of not having to take a Black Orc character to unlock the Black Orc unit, that's a lot of points spent on Black Orcs you may not want to spend. And
you don't necessarily need to.
Yeah.
Which I suppose onto that, we should make explicit the thing that changed here is that the rules for Impetuous changed. Previously, it was completely random, no control, 50-50 chance you guys are going to have to charge. Now you roll against your leadership. And so that's a lot more control because if you've got a leadership 9, it's odds are you're gonna pass. You can't rely on it, but it's better odds. But you can still stick your impetuous guys within 3 inches of any or 6 inches of any Black Orc unit or the Black Orc Warboss, and then they don't suffer from impetuous anyway. But that's one of the reasons why Night Goblins are good, is because they don't have the impetuous rule, whereas Orcs do and Goblins do. Goblins also just don't bring anything to the table. The errata didn't really change anything. They're no better. Same with Snotlings. Spider Riders, poison got nerfed a bit. Doesn't automatically wound on a 6. Now it just gives you +2 to wound, which means it's nowhere near as good. Wolf Riders got better because impetuous is now a leadership check, and so if you have them buddying along with your general and a wyvern or something, then they're not just going to do the thing that you didn't want.
But if they're outside of the general range, they're even worse than they were before because their leadership is like 6.
Yes, exactly. They're more likely to charge, exactly. Then Night Goblin Squeak Herd, for me, I don't think they're a competitive play, but they are better than they were. And so these guys, if they get charged, now they still die very, very easily, but depending how many of them you got, you might strike back from the second rank. And the 2 attacks at strength 5, AP 1 armor bane is not nothing. Now, you're only going to get one of them from the supporting rank, but still, I think there's a world where they're kind of okay. The other thing is, if you are now seeing more infantry in the meta as a whole, then infantry is going to start getting charges off. You're going to see less big ridden monsters. You'll still see monsters. Monsters, I think, got relatively better because the big ridden monsters weren't there to prey on them. But monsters will still be good, but you're going to see more infantry, more cav, and a little bit more shooting. Now, these guys don't like shooting, but they do like actually getting into combat. Personally, I don't think I'll ever actually use them, but there is a world where you could, especially with the Evil Sun Shining being a bubble spell, which we'll get to later, but that gives armor piercing and reroll 1s to hit. They can put out quite a lot of damage.
I think depending on how the meta does develop, if people are taking lots of like state troops, men-at-arms, goblins, like that kind of infantry, those squig units don't need large numbers to happily take a charge. A unit of men-at-arms charges them. You're only taking, 6 or 7 attacks. You lose 2 or 3 squigs, but then your attacks back with 2 ranks are going to be huge. So there are going to be more units that they don't even need to charge. They can accept a charge from and still handily beat. Potentially. I don't think that's how things will shake out, but that's one way in which they might end up being actually a really useful choice for 100 points.
Yeah, I can see that there is a world where they could be useful. I'd probably most of the time just go squig hoppers instead of them anyway. It's 2 points extra, so it's 10 points for the squig, 2 points to pop a rider on them, and you get a whole bunch more movement and benefits. So, realistically, that's probably where I'm just going. But these guys are core. But the infantry thing, the other thing that made infantry get better, and thus Orcs and Goblins core a lot better, is that in the match play guide, now there are missions, and some of these require you holding objectives, and that's based on unit strength. And for a lot of them, it needs to be core. So having some core with numbers is pretty good, and Orcs and Goblins were already doing that before anyway in a competitive list. So the actual competitive stuff in the core that you're probably going to have in your list, or that I've got in most of mine, is Night Goblins. So these guys still throw out the Fanatics. The Fanatics aren't quite as good as they were. Most people won't register, but you could release your Fanatic when you were fleeing. So they charge you, they win, then you release in their turn, and you can still get value. You can also release them in marching column. You can no longer do those things, but otherwise Fanatics just still win games. They beat up on armor, and they're very, very good. And so they do the work in the army. And so I think you still want a couple of units of Night Goblins, and the best way to the maximum Fanatics you can have is 3, and so the unit size is 30. Then it makes sense now because of the the bonus. It makes sense to spend the points with Standard Bearer, Muso, and Boss, because now they can also be a functional unit with missions, and they can actually take on units that challenge, etc. I don't think you need to change anything. Hand weapons and shield means that they got slightly better. They're now got a 5-up armor, which isn't nothing. And so I think that's pretty good. And you're still paying the very, very cheap 3 points each. I think there's actually an argument now for netters, though.
Can you just clarify for me really quick? The match play guide objectives that are core units that depend on unit strength. That's strategic locations and what's
Watchtower.
It's called something. Special formation?
Special feature?
Special feature, that's right. So strategic locations and special features.
Okay.
The unit strength is of the unit that is closest to them, right? So if you have 2 units, it doesn't matter. You just pick the one with the highest unit strength.
If they're both equidistant, then yes. And so if you can both,
I'm just wondering about if you can, because we see, and also just for efficiency, previously 30 night goblins always. It's always 30 because you just max out your fanatics, then you move on to the next. Do you think there's play in more? Because 30 is not a big unit anymore.
So yes, and this is kind of where netters come in. I actually think in most of my lists at the moment, I've got 1 unit of 30 and 1 unit of 36. The reason 36 is because at 36 you can do a 6x6 block. Then you put in one of your Night Goblin characters that's just your naked thing to enable the Night Goblin block, your 30-point character, or your BSB, and now you can march up 12. And before you could release your fanatics. Now you can't. But next turn you take him out, and all of a sudden you're in combat order because you're just a 6x6 brick. And so a few extra goblins, I think, make sense. And then if you're going to do that, then netters are worth considering now, because if the goblins are actually going to see combat, they never really did before unless it was just something to eat them, like they weren't contributing meaningfully. But now they meaningfully contribute unit strength. And so if they're going to be in combat, then netters decrease the strength of something that they're in combat with. Now, that means that if they've got a unit that is attacking into your Black Orcs or something, you can run into the flanks and net that unit. And now that unit that was trying to eat the Black Orcs is -1 strength. And that can actually do something.
I'm interested at the step before that, though, before they're fighting, when you're just scoring, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're not necessarily engaged in combat. Like, my feel, and obviously I've played 3 games and not at 1K, so this is based off no actual practical experience yet. Yeah. My feel is that 36 isn't going to score you points on an objective. Like, there's going to be 40 zombies minimum sitting in on objectives. So you're starting against 40 unit strength. If you want to outscore them, you're going to need... And with goblins at 3 points a model, why not go... If you want to square, why not go 7x7, 8x8?
Dude, I think there's absolutely an argument for it. And for me, at this point, because I don't know how the meta is shaping out, that's one of the ways to adapt into it. But to begin with, until it turns out that you need to... Hey, sorry?
So I'm just wondering, like, your approach is just like get a bit of like games, a few games in, and just see where the numbers
sort of work. At the moment, I don't know. Is the meta going to shake out that there's tons of infantry, or is it just going to turn out that people now just run cav buses and stuff? Like, are people going to have unit strength 50 stuff on the board or not? And for me, I feel like I could try and anticipate all of the stuff that everyone else is going to do, or I can do the thing that I think makes most efficient sense and then adapt as I need to into the meta. And there's definitely a world where you want more, and the more of them you've got, the better relatively netters get. And so on a lot of my lists, well, because the netters cost 20 for the unit. Doesn't matter whether there's 10 guys or if there's 200. It's a static cost. So the netters get cheaper the bigger the unit is. Make sense? So for me...
Wait, so you can't kill the netters. They just exist in the unit.
Yeah, it's just an upgrade to the unit. And it's not always going to work out well for you, but 3 points a model. The netters doesn't change it. So I think Night Goblins are good. For me, I think you probably want 2 units. They could be a 30 and a 20, or a 36 and a 30, or a couple of 30s. But the other good thing that is in core, if you have a Black Orc character, is Black Orcs.
So just before we get deep into the Black Orcs, I just wanted to add another thing on the the units for objective grabbing, like your 30 Night Goblins. because you just have to be closest, the actual number isn't always going to matter. You could have a bigger unit. If it's slightly further away, you'll still catch it. And that's where giving ground and winning rounds of combat starts to be really big. You can just push a bigger unit off an objective if you're a little better at combat. Now, that might make the netters seem more appealing, or it might make having just a second unit seem more appealing, because even with netters, the Night Goblins might not be winning. But those dynamic push and pulls within range of an objective is going to matter a lot. And some of those more elite core infantry units might have a role to play. And that's where, the netters might become more appealing again. It doesn't matter if you net a dragon if it's just fighting Night Goblins, but netting Knights of the Realm on foot, pretty good.
Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
That is, I think, the role that Black Orcs should and probably will play. And I don't think you have to write the list that way. But there are so many advantages to having the Black Orc Warboss, because he's the only one in the army who can get Leadership 9, that if you take him, there's a Black Orc tax. And so the cheapest you can do is 60 points. And you can make this a functional unit because of the new challenge rules. It could be that a unit of 5 might actually do something or hold something up for a turn. But anyway, if a small unit, I stick stubborn on them, chuck a boss on them, probably 3 shields because of the motley crew. That gives you majority. Then they've all got a 3-up save. And then if you want, you can stick a few great weapons on them. And so you can have a relatively cheap unit of Black Orcs that's kind of like a Black Orc tax. The other way you can play them is as a kind of like a caster bunker, because you put your Orc with them, and now they're giving him a bonus to cast. And so I'd probably run them as 12, because you can run them in lines of 6. And then when they charge, each of the Black Orcs is putting out 2 great weapon attacks. When they get charged, they're going to take 2 ranks of Black Orc great weapon attacks. And all of them, not quite 2 ranks, but all of them are going to be saving on 3s because of Motley Crew. And a couple of them are only going to be attacking back with hand weapons and shield instead of great weapons. But that's a lot. That's not nothing to charge into these days. So 12, could be 14. Probably stick standard Muso on them. Take the stubborn off. It's too expensive. And then you stick shields on exactly half of the unit. And then great weapons, because that gives you a maximum Motley Crew benefit. And then you put 3 shields in the front rank and 3 shields in the rank behind if you rank 6 wide. And so everything will be on a 3-up, even your champion in a challenge. And then you stick your 12 great weapons on them. And I probably wouldn't. I probably would do 12 for this unit. And so you can have a unit that isn't cheap. It's now about the same cost as our Night Goblins. And I would suggest prior to this unit did next to nothing. It certainly isn't doing all of the wonderful things that Fanatics do. Fanatics always do the work. They've always got it done. But this unit could actually do something now. But it is kind of small. And so the other way that you can do it is load it up a little bit more and now start making it enough Black Orcs that you can chuck a banner on it. And so the banner I think you want on them is the big red raggedy flag, which gives them +1 to weapon skill and +1 combat resolution. And so the reason you want this is so that things aren't punching in and hitting you on 3s if weapon skill 5 stuff, and that you're punching weapon skill 4 stuff on 3s yourself. So it's kind of like a defensive offensive upgrade at that point. And so I think that's good, but you don't want to spend 50 points on a magic flag for 5 Black Orcs. You probably don't want to spend it for 10. There's a point where it starts to become viable. And then you got to keep sticking in more shields. Again, half of the shields of the unit. And then great weapons on this one, I'd probably run about 16. I'd probably run 1 additional hand weapon. Because when you're being shot, the armor that you're shot at is the armor of the majority of the unit. So we got 20 Black Orcs, we got 10 shields. The majority of the unit is in your favor in that case. So now the whole unit's getting shot on a 3-up, even though we didn't buy 20 shields. Then if something does die, first thing it says you must remove them equally for shooting. Not evenly distributed, just equally. So I interpret that as the first one that I take off is anything that, so I'll take off someone that doesn't have a shield or a great weapon. The next one I'll take off is the guy with additional hand weapon. And then when shooting comes in again, I'll take off another guy with an empty that isn't wielding any weapons. And you can just save us a few points by not having quite as many shields, hand weapons, and great weapons in there.
I personally took a slightly different approach, which was that confused me, and so I basically just had all of the models with shields and great weapons and paid like a points tax to not have to think all of that through.
If you're being efficient, if you're being efficient and maximizing Motley Rule, which they did kind of, errata to be, or I think it was errata or FAQ to be more egregious, then, and I don't know why they've done that, but this is the stuff that you should expect that your opponent may do because they can.
Another thing to bear in mind with the big unit is that when you've got a third rank, that's where your surplus shields can be, so you can have more great weapons in the second rank that get to attack. Because Motley Crew only keys off the models in the front rank, so you could have half of the models in your front rank with shields, the full rank behind with great weapons, and then your extra shields in the third rank, so that you can keep attacking at kind of full power without having to drop the armor save.
Yeah, there are all sorts of shenanigans that you can do. The other thing that I consider doing if I've now invested 350 points is I would consider putting it on Obsidian Lodestone. Magic resistance, I think, is going to be very, very good in this because it reduces the actual casting result. And they already need bigger rolls than before for level 4s because of the change. So to me, something like that, and the points will have to work with the roster. But I think that there's a good argument for a unit like this that can hold objectives. It can fight, it can tank, it can take a charge, it can take your Orc caster. So I think this is a functional unit kind of all by itself. Meanwhile, it's also squashing Impetuous for things nearby you, and it doesn't care when your Night Goblins panic. And so I think now this is a viable unit, whereas previously at the start of the edition, I was rocking 24, and then I went down to 18, and then down to 14, and they just never do anything. But that's changed. So for core, I think those two are the good units.
Chris, I really just before we get too far along here, I really think that's underrated, and I highly respect the calculation of real life mental effort into list writing, like the opportunity cost of paying 10 more points so that you don't have to think. I love it.
Okay, well, I think it's worth it if you want to dominate.
I think it's honestly, like depending on the context, I think it's not to be sneezed at. Like the two armies I play, one is very weak in the meta and one is very strong in the meta, and the difference of inexperience, like my personal emotional and mental experience over a day of games, whether it's 3 or 2 games in a day, is significantly different if I don't have to spend as much time thinking. Like I actually think there's like making a like, and not to say that you're doing anything wrong and you should change anything at all, Chad, because I think you're perfect. But I think people should think about that more. Like how
fair call. So I don't think.
Just to say, like, we've got limited attention span and mental processing power within a 2.5 hour like game window. If you're spending it on things like micromanaging your Motley Crew, remembering which of your Night Goblin big bosses has a charmed shield and if he's used it or not, and which one doesn't, like these kinds of things add up to you not thinking about like the bigger picture of the game. And
those really pesky things. Yeah, exactly. Those pesky things like, I don't know, charge arcs. Who wants to think about charge arcs?
And you're both exactly right, but for the purposes of this episode, we're going to try and squeeze out all of the efficiency and performance that we can. It's what the people want. So, moving into special, Black Orcs, you're probably not going to take them because you're going to take them in core.
Why boys would both. Like what? Are they core if?
They're core if you've got a Black Orc Warboss general.
But also, if you have one of them, you have to have the other. So if you've got a Black Orc character, you have to have a Black Orc unit. Because you've got a Black Orc who's probably a general, they're a core unit. You're rarely going to want a second Black Orc unit. But you could, but they just are much less appealing when they're not in core.
You could, you just probably not.
The core part, actually, I think, in 1.5, increasingly important. Like looking for armies that have really good core.
Yeah, for sure. So you're probably not taking Black Orcs in core, but Boar Boys you probably are. Sorry, in special. And Boar Boys you probably are. Boar Boys are very strong. Nothing much changed for them except for the impetuous, which means now you don't have to have a thinking orcs hat on them, which previously was a 25-point thing that I just always put on there because they want to be reliable and not charging off. Now you don't have to do that. You've got options to chance it on your leadership, or you can stick them next to your Black Orcs in the way that you could before as well. So for me, for Boar Boys, I think they're viable as a 4, but I think they're much, much better as an 8. At 8 points, that's when if you have to get 3 things shot off to be more than 25%, it's when you need to have less than 2 things for less than 25% when they're panicking. And so it's a very sweet spot. Anything divisible by 4 is good. So they're good because they output a lot of damage, but they really only do that once in the army with biggins. And so your biggin Boar Boys are very, very good. Any Boar Boys that aren't biggins and aren't in a nomadic war, and we're not going to talk about nomadic war today, they're nowhere near as good as the biggins one. So for me, I take a unit of Boar Boys. I like 8. I stick Standard Bearer, Muso, Boss on them. I stick them with cavalry spears, heavy armor, shields. They come in at 20 points a model, 180 points for the unit. They put out 3 strength 5 attacks on the charge, one of them at AP2, and then the other one at AP1 Armor Bane because of the Tuskers. So they put out a lot of damage. The problem with them is they've only weapon skill 3, so if they don't hit very well, that's a big problem. But that's a lot. They punch much higher than they should for 180 points. And they're rocking a 3-up save with tough 4. So I think they were good. Now they're a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's mostly contextual changes that help them. Fewer dragons, the kinds of things that you can have as many like medium attacks as you want. The dragon didn't care. Still probably doesn't, but there'll be fewer of them around, and more infantry that they will get the jump on a bit more often. So I think they were good. They're contextually a little bit better. Possibly still a bit of a luxury if you think you're spending 1,000 points on characters, 500 plus points on core. There's not that many points left for your specials and rares, and so this is one of the units that for me often is a nice unit to have, but one that doesn't always make the final cut, depending on what the rest of the setup is like.
So sneak preview, I think that you don't need to have 1,000 points in characters for Orcs and Goblins anymore. I think the 180 point Boar Boys is better than a level 4 in today's environment. If before kitting them out with increasing the points with all of the extra magic items and all that kind of stuff. And so I think I default to them in the list, but you definitely don't need them. And the other problem with them is that they change the momentum and purpose of the list. So if you write a list where you've got 3 Night Goblin blocks, you are a defensive list. You stick your Doom Divers, and if you've got Bolt Throwers or Rock Lobbers behind, and then the Night Goblins, while they're not technically shooting, they are shooting because they're going to come to you and you're going to destroy them with Fanatics. If you've got a Boar Boy unit, it doesn't fit the theme of the list being defensive, and that becomes a spot that they can prey on easily and pick up points. And so I'm not sure that they always want to be in there, but for the sort of combined armed list that I write, I like it.
I think they're still really good defensively because what you're trying to do with the Night Goblin Fanatics and Doom Divers is force your opponent to enter into this like short range death zone where they just get hit with all of your hex spells, your Fanatics. They have to move into Squig Hopper charge range, all of that, and the Boar Boys can play well into that as well if you hold them back. But the question is what you have to give up, and if that's if you don't need all the characters' points that you used to, I think you're right. That's not necessary in the way it used to be. But if you do want, you could have an orc character on a chariot, for example, instead of the Boar Boys. Maybe that's better in some context.
You can have a Cav Warboss for about the same points, So previously you take the Thinking Orcs hat to stop Impetuous. Now I think if you've got any kind of character in there that doesn't have MR, there's a world where you stick your Obsidian Lodestone in them, but otherwise I wouldn't, because it's only 180 points. Don't make it too expensive. Magic Standards, again, personally, I'll put them on if I've got a character in there. I'd be using either the Big Red Raggedy if you didn't put them on your Black Orcs, because instead you wanted to stick the War Banner on your Black Orcs to increase charge range, which is totally viable. Then I'd put Big Red Raggedy on these guys and it solves their hitting problem, or largely solves it. The other thing is the Banner of Butchery. And so the Banner of Butchery is +1 strength on the charge. The War Banner is plus D3 to your charge result and 3 inches to your charge range, which with infantry changes now could be worthwhile putting on your Black Orcs, especially with the Here We Go, another 3 inches and D3 from your caster in the Warlord. It might actually work. You could do Spider Banner as well, but yeah. Anyway, so that's the Boar Boys. I think they're good. I think that is a good kit. Then Squig Hoppers. I think secretly these are kind of the best thing in the Orcs and Goblins list. And the Fanatics and the Doom Divers are very, very good. These guys are doing 2 strength 5 attacks, AP1 Armor Bane. They're doing an impact hit. Then there's a rider on the back that, it doesn't do anything unless you equip them with cavalry spears. They paper, they just die to anything. But you get to control exactly where you move them, and they're perfect unit for abusing random movement because they skirmish. They don't have to do any wheeling or any of this kind of stuff. And so the beautiful part about random move in this edition is that if you are not random move, you decide and commit to what you are doing in the movement phase and then find out if it was successful. So I'm charging you. Oh, crap, my charge didn't make it, and now I'm where I am, right? With random move, you roll. If you didn't make it, then just move them to the most advantageous spot, like stick them outside of someone's arc or hide behind something. And I think that is very, very, very strong. And so these guys always punch above their weight for me. Personally, I take the minimum investment, 60 points. Now with the changes to Overkill, there's a world where you put the boss on there. I don't know, maybe as a way to charge into the side so you've got another challenge. I think there's a world where you do that. There is also a world where you do cavalry spears to give them +1 strength on the charge. Danny.
I have a question.
Yes, Danny. Yes.
I think it occurred to me because Nicholas Killing decided to do it to me a while ago now, and it was horrific. What sort of access, and I haven't really looked for this specifically, but you will know, what sort of access do you have to Terra?
Wyvern. And Mangler Squig does it too.
Giant.
Okay.
Giant. Bone
Troll
Grinder
Hag?
Giant. Troll Hag.
You can fit 2 Wyverns, right?
Oh, you'll see. Yeah.
Can you
I've
fit
got
more
a few
than
lists.
Or are they locked?
In the Grand Army they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your Grand Army you can have 2.
Because what Nicholas did to me, which was horrific and very, very strong, was declared some charges at me with Terra, made some stuff flee, and then moved the random movers into contact with it. And just killed the unit.
Yeah, beautiful. Love it.
It's very good. You're like, okay, I failed 1 Terra test and now they're dead. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Love it.
With the access to really like this cheap as chips random movers.
Yep.
Is really good because you're not really paying for it. He was doing it with a dragon and or 2 dragons and some of the giant cows. Yeah, which is like you're paying hundreds. But here, it's the cheap version of that, and the Terra test is the same. Do you have access to necromancy?
No.
You don't have the good leadership debuffs in Orcs to really push that angle. But people will want to flee as a charge reaction from 20 Black Orcs, for example, or from the Boar Boys. So you
if there's some Hopping Boys nearby.
Well, exactly. Even if they don't actually flee to let you set it up, the threat of that happening might be enough to make them hold a charge they don't want to.
Options. Yeah.
That's good.
So I don't think the cavalry spears are particularly worthwhile. I'd rather bulk up the number of them. And so the other thing that is interesting to note about these guys is that they're cavalry, and each of them has unit strength 2. So they are actually mounts. So when it comes to having characters that are mounted like a goblin mage on a giant wolf, you can run him next to these, not inside them, and he gets his lookout or his loner or whatever. I can't remember what the rule is, but he can't be targeted. So there is a world where it makes sense to increase the unit size a little bit and give a couple of characters, which we'll talk about later, a little bit of protection. But I don't think it's necessarily needed. So my default is to run them as just a 60. I'm not sure about the boss. What are your thoughts on the boss, Chris?
I really like it, just for having additional challenge options, whether that's challenging a dragon who's just killed the unit champion out of your Night Goblin unit, send in the Squeak Hoppers, now you have another round of guaranteeing that it loses. Also, it lets you
can
tag team
chase
the Wyvern.
him and can chase him down now.
Well, they only
because-
chase 2d6, don't they?
Yeah, but if
don't
you're going to be in the flank at the back
Yeah.
or something, and so he's going to flee from the Night Goblins, and you're
Yeah.
not going to have that far to catch it.
Also, you can tag team them with the Wyvern to take a challenge from a unit champion if you've got the Wyvern. So I really like the boss. I think also those 7s and 8s might be, again, contextually a bit better. It's a sort of unit that when there's 5 of them, you don't want to send them into the front of 20 Empire Swordsmen, but 7 or 8 of them maybe you do. And you're going to see more of those units around than you did before. Yeah. So if you've only got a couple of units of Night Goblins, because you've only got a couple of Night Goblin characters, maybe you start adding more to the units. Whereas once you've got 3 or 4 Night Goblin characters, then maybe just lots of units of 5. But they are very good, and you don't want to spend too many points on them, but you want to put your points into good units like your Squeak Hoppers, and they are limited in the numbers you can take.
Yeah. So I am running 2 packs of Squeak Hoppers at the moment because I'm running 2 packs of Night Goblins. You just take 5 Squeak Hoppers for each Night Goblin unit that you take would be my advice. They're that good. Then other stuff in special, the Boar Chariots.
Skip it.
Well, Boar Chariots, I think are interesting because of first charge, but I don't think I'll actually take. The Trolls aren't worth taking with the changes to stupidity. The Chariot, the Goblin Wolf Chariot, I don't think does anything.
The only one of these things I've ever seen you take, Jabe, is Bolt Throwers, and that's only when you have a spare 45 points.
Yeah. Pump Wagons, same thing. Bolt Throwers, I think, are good and got better with the new changes because you're going to see more ranks of things. And so I think Bolt Throwers are worth taking. And sneaky little tip, if you've got them within range of the Evil Sun Shining spell, then they get to re-roll their 1 to hit. And they get an extra armor piercing. And so that's it for special.
I don't hate a single wolf chariot just because it gives you a very fast diverter. Those little orc darts we were talking about can only go 12. A wolf chariot can go 18 and still force people to angle away. And with Impetuous becoming better, with Impetuous being less of a downside, there's maybe some scope to do that now that there wasn't before.
I think this guy does it better. Just a goblin big boss on a wolf. Because
but he doesn't force your opponent to align to him because he's lone character.
He just changes the direction they're going to be. But yes, you're right. Yeah, no, that's true. But okay, so yeah, I haven't used the chariots before, but
not great. But it's a use that it may have, and the less that flies, the more often that use will come up.
Yep. Rare giants. They're not. They didn't get any better. Doom Divers were very good and are still very good. I suggest you take 2 because they're that good. Arachnarok didn't get any better. Troll Hag, not going to really talk about. Manglers, I think, did get a bit better. They're going to be into more shooting, but they're also going to be into more infantry and cavern stuff, and they'd love eating things up with Killing Blow. So I think Manglers probably got a little bit better, and you can kind of consider them a chariot because impact hits are better now because impact hits happen before the challenge stage, which previously they didn't. And so I think they're a little bit better. And I have run Manglers, and I do think they're all right. They just tend to die pretty quickly. But when they do stuff, they do stuff. Then Rock Lobber.
I like the Troll Hag. We sort of skipped over it. It's expensive, but with less poison shooting, less tooled up dragons around, being unbreakable is going to last for quite a bit longer. Ultimately, you probably only want it in the Troll Horde because you get to re-roll the regen saves.
Yeah.
But I think the Troll Hag is actually quite good for a non-flying monster, and if again, it depends on how mobile the meta is. But if other people are just hoping to move up and sit on objectives, the Troll Hag is going to have things to point at and will actually get into contact with high value targets.
Yep. And less ridden monsters to prey on her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good shout. But the other thing in rare is rock lobbers. They're very cheap stone throw. It's just a stone throw. You don't get any engineers or any other stuff, but you're hitting something at strength 8, AP 3 or 4, D6 wounds. It's cheap. You can do an artillery army with orcs and goblins, and it's not bad. But you're not going to default to them, whereas the Doom Divers you will. So this here, to me, is kind of the meat of what I think is a good Orcs and Goblins army. And that's just the variety that I play, which I suppose I should sort of talk about, is I like combined arms. You can definitely do a smash list and not have magic. You can do a lot of magic as Orcs and Goblins. You can do your Cav, you can do your Trolls, you can just do Night Goblins. The beauty of the Orcs and Goblins list is there is so much list depth and diversity, I think more than any other in the game. And so you can do a lot. For me, I like combined arms. I like creating a list that can play into most things or can play into everything. Some things are going to be some bad matchups, but I'm not hoping to just kind of get lucky and win the rock, scissors, paper thing in a tournament is kind of my mentality. Plus, I like playing in each phase. So for me, the meat of the army is you want your 2 Night Goblin mobs. And to do that, you've got to take 2 Night Goblins. They don't have to be big bosses. They can be casters. I don't think that the Night Goblin casters are very good. The only redeeming factor of them, assuming you don't want to play Illusion and with the casting values being so much more unreachable now, unless you've got a power scroll, I don't think you're going to get the stuff that you want. The redeeming factor of a Night Goblin caster on War Magic is that they allow you to take a Night Goblin mob. But otherwise, I think you're going to take a couple of big bosses. For me, I have a guy naked as my battle standard bearer. He doesn't really sit in the blocks, but he could for the marching shenanigans that I spoke about the 6x6 block that turns into a marching column by popping him in. And otherwise, he just hangs around the edges of whatever unit available, and that's it. And then the other guy, you can do stuff like you need him just to take the Night Goblins, but you can do useful things with him, which we'll talk about in a minute. And so there's our Boar Boys, there's our Squig Hoppers, and there's our Doom Divers. So just as just the meat of the army, it's about half of the points. So there's a lot you can do with it from this point. You can choose. Am I going to be really smashy? Do I want a couple of Wyverns? Do I want to have heaps of magic? Do I want to have that big block of Black Orcs? Do I want to go more artillery? Do I want to just have more Night Goblins? And so there's lots of options and places that you can go with it. But a lot of that is generated from the characters. And so with the characters, the first thing is you got to think about who you want to be your general. For me, it is always the Black Orc Warboss because he's the only one with leadership 9. And then when you stick him on a Wyvern, he's projecting 9, 18 inches, and that adds a lot to the army. And so I think that helps reliability, Danny.
I have a question. Please, sir. Is there any other character you would ever consider to be a general?
Yes, I would absolutely consider an Orc Warboss if I wanted. Well, there's a restriction. You can only have 0 to 1 Warboss or Weird Knob that's Orc based per 1,000 points. So in 2000s, you can take a Black Orc Warboss and an Orc Warboss.
But or not 2 Orc each.
Yeah, and you can't take 2 of those and an Orc caster. So if you want and so the other thing is magic actually, is that the casting range on some of the WoW buffs are range self. So Evil Sun Shining, in fact, it might be a good time to go into this. So I'll answer your question in a minute properly, Danny, but Law of the War has quite low casting values. And so while the errata happened and the effective casting level of your wizard decreased, that makes Wa relatively more achievable, whereas elementalism and battle magic, which are the other 2 Orc options, are a little bit higher casting cost. It's not undoable. It's like you get it 50-50, but Wa magic, you're going to get more than that. You're probably not going to take the Assailment. Vindictive Glare is very good. This is only cast on an 8. And so if you're an orc in a unit of orcs, you're casting at +3. You're casting on a 5. Now, obviously, you're going to want to cast higher than that anyway because of dispels, but it means that you're going to be able to achieve it. What that also means is that there's a world where low-level casters that don't have all the items might still maybe cast some of the spells reasonably frequently. But being able to cast a Strength 7, multi-wounds, ignore armor, regen into combat, very good. Low casting value. Hand of Mork, previously I was sleeping on this. I think this could be possibly one of the best spells in the lore, because if I've understood it correctly, I can move a unit and then Hand of Mork it. Or I can Hand of Mork it, but not a unit, a character, like my Wyvern boss, or an Orc caster, which I'll get to in a minute. You can Hand of Mork them out of combat or somewhere sneaky behind their lines that they couldn't have got before, and then move them. And if you happen to be an Orc caster and you happen to be doing that, and you happen to have this beautiful little spell called Gaze of Gork, and you happen to be on a Wyvern or just using the Hand of Mork, and you line yourself up, you're doing a 5d6 range thing into ranks now, which is what the game's moving more towards, Strength 5, AP 3. You can do quite a lot of damage with that. And so I think Hand of Mork is going to create opportunities for Gaze of Gork.
What leads you to believe that it can be moved after or before, like twice in the one phase?
Because the other spells that say you can only do it, they state, like TMP, that you cannot have moved or move otherwise. And this very explicitly does not. And the most direct comparison to it.
I mean, with the rule set being permissive rule set, I'd say that if it doesn't say you can do it, then you can't do it. I encountered this with Nick and what's the spell? Infernal Gateway, where he tried to Infernal Gateway a dragon and then march it. And I don't think it works like that because of the FAQ, the first FAQ they released. I think it might be the first one on the first question on the FAQ, which is what constitutes a move. And it's any time you pick up and place a model anywhere for any reason, that's a move. And so none of those spells say that you can then move again, even if you have already moved. So I don't think that's a possibility. But I'm open to be convinced.
Well, I don't know. It's they very explicitly say here, which is a direct competitor in TMP. It says the target friendly cannot move again during this movement phase. Like, assuming it's the same people writing the same thing, and this is the central copy-paste spell, although the Hand of Mork is a lot worse because it can only target a character and it's only 2d6. And so I think that is what makes it good, is that you can do that, whereas a spell like this is just good.
So, Danny, your point is that there's something somewhere else in the rules that says you can only move once a turn, something like that?
Yeah.
Movement rule. Maybe this needs an FAQ, but if it does play,
it's not the point of this episode anyway. But it's just something interesting to note.
Ironically, it means that something like if a unit comes on from reserve, then it can't move that turn because you've already moved them or placed them in some way. So then you'd be like, well, you can't move after coming on from reserve. If that's the, does
the FAQ say pick up and place or place?
If you blow the model and don't actually touch it, what happens then?
Did anyone at the GW rules writing team care about this? Probably not.
Yeah. So the other, even if you apply that sort of lens to it, I think there's very much a world where you can move and march and then cast Hand of Mork, even if the reverse is not true. But even without that, it's very good insurance for your Wyvern boss on your Black Orc Wyvern boss. If he gets into a combat he doesn't like, lift him up, move him away, and then threaten to charge something else. If you do have your Orc caster in your Black Orc block and you get charged, then pick up your guy, take him away. Sorry, he has to survive a round of combat. Or if you charge something because you wanted the here we go to increase your charge range and he's in your unit, you get into combat, then you pick him up, move him somewhere else, and if you had Gaze of Gork,
Troll Hag, also a character that you can pick up and fling around, even if you're taking it as a rare choice.
Absolutely, and she can do some stuff. So I think it's very good. I hadn't been rating it because I was thinking, oh, there's only like a couple of characters in my army anyway, but just getting more out of them, I think would be very good. Band Moon Rising is a bad spell. The casting cost is too high. Doesn't have a particularly big range. It's only until the end of this turn, and it's just not as good as Itchy Nuisance, which we'll get to in a minute. Evil Sun Shining is now, I think, very good. If the meta shifts so that we actually see some prolonged combats, which I think is what we all want to get out of the old world, is not you fly your dragon in, my guys get eaten up as they run away in one turn. I want to see a block goes in, hits a block, the block moves back, something comes out in the flank, and then there's kind of an organicness to the battlefield. That's what I want to see. If we see more infantry, and then I think that Evil Sun gets a lot better. So what it does is it's a 9-up casting value, and the range is self. So if you are a Night Goblin Mage, level 4, I think your range self is 5. You would get, it might be 6, but you get +3 for being in a horde of Night Goblins, but it's still not very good. That's not a very big bubble. The Orc gets leadership 8, and if he's in the Black Orcs who have got a couple of ranks, that now goes to 10. And that starts being an appreciable size, and that's pretty good. What it gives is reroll hits to 1 and improve the armor piercing characteristics. So if you've got that going on your Black Orcs, that's pretty good. Not hitting is a problem for them. If you've got that happening on your Boar Boys, it's good. Got that happening on your Knight, on your Squeak Hoppers, that's good. And this also, the armor piercing works on your Fanatics as well. The hit doesn't matter. So the other thing that you can do, and to answer your original question, Danny, was would you take another general? And so there's a world where you take a level 4 Orc on a Wyvern, you stick the Staff of Badoom on him so he gets his D3 to cast, you stick him on War Magic, and now he's projecting a range 18 bubble of Evil Sun Shining.
I think there's other variations on that beyond that, because of the way that these leadership and magic things interact. If you've just got a normal it doesn't matter what it is. If your character is in a unit, has warband, gets up to leadership 10, if your Night Goblin Shaman is within your general's command range, their leadership is up to 10 now, so their command range is up to 10. And so you can make really large bubbles if your general is in range of the mages casting these range self aura effects.
Wait, is that right? I thought I'd been playing it the other way. I'd been playing that they couldn't use the leadership of the general.
There's a whole bunch of things in the game that says you have to use your own leadership or your own unmodified leadership. I don't think that's the case for what your command range is. I guess need to go back into the books to double check. But at least the way I'd understood it is, that if you were in a unit and you were warbanding yourself up to leadership 10, your command range goes up to 10. If your general is giving you their leadership, well, that's now your command range as well.
Okay.
If that's right.
Again, maybe in the comments, let us know what you think.
But that opens up loads of different general options. If you've got you want a Warboss to join your Boar Boys, if it's a Black Orc, leadership 9 goes up to 10, is projecting that around. If your general is a Goblin with leadership 7, and in a unit with Horde and Warband, can go up to leadership 10 just on a Goblin. So you have a lot of options for what you want your general to be based on the makeup of the rest of the characters. And I think, if it's a level 4 in a unit, that's really solid because it's a leadership 10 general, or level 4 Orc. Pretty easy to make it a leadership 10 general who's also a level 4 caster, and you can still take another Orc Warboss on a Wyvern or something like that that's not your general, because it's going to go off and act independently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a few of those sorts of variations that we're going to get stuck into. But this is now a very good spell, and the beautiful part about it is it remains until your your next start of turn, and that you can cast it and then move and calculate what's going to be in range for the combat. So you declare your charges. So you cast this, you declare your charges, and then you move your character to make sure that the bubble fits correctly. Here we go is the opposite. So here we go is, again, a self, range self. It's only cast on an 8, so it's a bit of a theme, low casting, and it increases your declarable charge range by 3 and you charge by D3. in a world where infantry actually fights, that is a lot better than the world where they didn't, because D3 might make the difference. So, but the difference with this is, which also remains, you're going to be able to do this on your turn, but you've got to end your last turn in the right spot to benefit from it this turn. So you've got to have your mage in the right position before your turn starts so that you can benefit from the charge thing. So there is a bit of like the positioning of your mage when you've got these bubbles matters. Less so if you're projecting 18 inches and everything gets it. And then there's the foot, which also only casts on an 8, and potentially a little bit better when people move over the top of them. There was a bit of a change to vortexes in the errata. Now when you move on top of them, you suffer the vortex problem instead of the dangerous.
But they're also, you can dispel them from the vortex itself rather than having to be the wizard, so they won't stay.
So needed. And Arcane, the Pillar of Fire, no longer you choose the direction. So I think that War Magic got a lot better. When we contrast that with Elementalism for the Orcs, actually, first of all, back to the War. The War Magic basically encourages an Orc play style that wants to fight. The shooting is not enough in terms of like Vindictive Glare. Although between that and Foot of Gork, you can kind of do stuff, but it wants you to be fighting, which previously you weren't really doing beyond your Wyvern boss. And so now this spell, the Evil Sun Shining and Here We Go, got a lot better. And so I think that... Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I think it also works even better in a shooting focused army than you were giving it a little bit of credit for. Evil Sun Shining on your goblin shortbows. If you've got Amazing. 3 units of 30 night goblins, well, they can now reroll ones to hit and have armor piercing on them. And the what was the other one? And Itchy Nuisance, which we haven't got to yet, drops people's toughness as a hex spell, which works really nicely with it. It's good in combat, but it also pairs really nicely with the splash damage from Doom Divers and Rock Lobbers or from the shortbow shooting. So I think a level 4 goblin on War Magic, whether it's a Night Goblin or a Common Goblin, really nice, because unlike the Orc level 4, which can get the bonuses to cast, you don't need those bonuses to cast to be more reliably hitting the War Magic spells.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, the other good caster that I like is the Goblin Odd Knob, because you can stick him on a giant wolf, and now he's projecting his bubble to where he needs to be. His leadership might not be as high, but he's a lot more mobile. But I think he's on balance better with Elementalism, and then because you still get Itchy Nuisance anyway. So Night Goblins and Goblins get access to, I don't even know what this Mork's Curse is, some kind of garbage, and then Itchy Nuisance. So Itchy Nuisance is also, it's cast on a 9, so that's starts to be awkward for a level 1 caster. That's not very reliable. It's only got a range of 15 inches. That does actually come up a fair bit, because when things were all flying in, they're charging from further than 15 away. But until the next start of turn subphase, again, that's a good aspect of it. Target enemy unit minus D3 to toughness and initiative, which is absolutely huge, but it is very difficult to cast if it's not reliable. So you need a high level caster, then you got to invest some points into it, or it's not reliable, and you got to be able to be close to the front line. So there's some things about it, but I think Itchy Nuisance is very good. And in general, I think Goblin casters are better than Orc ones, except that Orc ones got better because they get the +1 to cast with Orcs. But previously, my caster of choice is a Goblin Odd Knob level 4 on a giant wolf. And then previously, I would have stuck him with an Idol of Gork, which increases cast range by 3 and gives you a re-roll of 1 casting roll per turn. Now, I don't think that is the default way to do it if you're running your Goblin for Elementalism. And I'll talk about that, but probably let's get stuck into Elementalism quickly. Flaming Sword, probably not super relevant. Plague of Rust was amazing, still amazing. Summon Elemental Spirit, it's okay, still okay. Earthen Ramparts, very good, got better because impact hits can't be allocated across now, I think was the change to that.
Depending on how you interpret the FAQ, which still kind of needs to actually clear up how Earthen Ramparts is supposed to work, as to whether or not you are in fact in base contact or not.
So I read it on Reddit, and what they said, which helped me think about it. And again, what I'm thinking in my mind and what we think it works might be different to the rules lawyers. But you move them in base contact, then there happens to be a less than paper thin invisible shield of magic that is going between them. So you are in base contact, but nothing can project through that's got too much impact force or something. That's how I think it makes sense. But yes, there's conjecture out there. We don't exactly know. We'll wait for the next FAQ, but Earthen Ramparts, even without that, pretty good and better when you've got your Orc, say, if you did go Elementalism with your Orc and you got him in your Black Orcs, now your Black Orcs, well, you don't need to. Sorry, that's battle magic. But anyway, your Black Orcs don't mind being charged now when they've got a 5+ ward save, given that they're attacking back with 2 ranks of great weapons. So that spell, I think, got a lot better for Orcs and Goblins. Wind Blast was good, is good. Topical Mystical Pathways got nerfed. Now you have to be wholly within, not just within. But the casting values, they're just a 10 for Travel Mystical Pathways is a lot. Your Wind Blast is 8. Your Earthen Ramparts is a 9. If you don't have items that are boosting your cast, you're not going to reliably get them. And some of these spells are ones that you kind of want to get at the right time. So I think you'd probably end up doing something like sticking on the Idol of Gork and then a Power Scroll. And so I think that's not necessarily a bad way to go. But if he is on a wolf, then who cares if the pie template does a 6-inch damage thing to everything around you, not in a unit. And so the Staff of Badum goes really well into solo characters, be they on a Wyvern or a Wolf. +3 D3 to cast makes him totally viable with Elementalism. And so I think he's a good caster. And then you could, if you want, additionally put a Power Scroll on there for this guy. I don't know, maybe a Dispel Scroll. But that I wouldn't spend any more points on him. I'd run him near my Boar Boys and my Squig Hoppers, and otherwise keep him out of danger just because of his massive movement. But Elementalism is good, and I think contributes a lot to the army, no matter how you're playing, whether it's shooting or you're trying to smash.
Yep, I think you could also have your Orc level 4 in a unit of Orcs with a +1 to cast as your Elementalism caster, and then have a War Magic Goblin. The Chariot mount for the common Goblin, giving you 360 degrees for your hexes and what's the opposite? Enchantment spells is really big. I find it pretty tricky sometimes to get the things that I want to cast enchantments and hexes on into my casting arc, and the Chariot giving you a 360 is great. I think definitely worth considering as another mount option for that reason. But even the Night Goblin one on foot, just War Magic, nice augments, but you're probably not basing your entire game plan around it. So you're just happy to get the spells off when you do. The Idol of Mork that increases your dispel range, plus a dispel scroll, quite nice for those little, the characters that are maybe on foot, not super expensive, but also not your main kind of casting threat. Put the Staff of Badum on the other one, then have an Idol of Mork as a sort of dispel-focused wizard. I think double level 4 is going to be pretty nice for Orcs. It was before.
Level 4, level 3, yeah.
Oh, yeah, level 4, level 3. And the other secret addition to that that's actually, I think, pretty good is Ogdras for like 190-odd points. You get a level 3 with a Lore Familiar and Elementalism, as well as the Troll Magic, which you're probably not really caring about here. But yeah, pretty, I think, reasonably efficient. Level 3 on Elementalism is an Orc. Has some extra rules and stuff, which take it or leave it. But you could definitely get some use out of Ogdras as well.
The issue with him is that he counts to you 0 to 1 per 1,000. So I actually think he's pretty good with the Lore Familiar. That's good, but that is a bit of an issue with him. So that's you casters that you're level 4. Oh no, we need to just quickly battle magic in terms of changes. Fireball still good. Curse of Arrow Attraction, not that you're probably not picking it. Pillar of Fire, I think is garbage now. Arcane Urgency, very good for infantry armies that want to move, or orcs that want to, like some boar boys that want to do stuff. Oaken Shield, if you've got your caster in your Black Orcs, that could be a value spell, and the casting value is quite small, and so that's good. Curse of Cowardly Flight, you're probably not using. So to me, I think Battle Magic wants you to either kind of chance it because you've got your Orc caster on a wild boar, and you're actually going for Gaze of Mork, and so there's a world where you take an Orc Weird Boy, and you just stick him on a Warboss so that he's got some more movement, and you roll Battle Magic. If you get Fireball, Arcane Urgency, or the whatever the one with the Oaken Shield, if you get one of those, then you do the appropriate thing. If you get the Oaken Shield and he's on a boar, you stick him in with the boar boys, and now they got a 5-up ward. If you get the Fireball, he casts, and if you've got Arcane Urgency, he does that. And if he doesn't, then he gets Vindictive Glare and goes boar riding around looking for lines of people to skewer with the powerful eyes of Gork. And so he's a bit of an option. I think Battle Magic, otherwise, if you're putting it on your level 4, I think I'd probably lore familiar it and do it on my level 3. Yeah.
I think on a Wyvern, it's kind of nice as well. If you've got a Wyvern Wizard, Battle Magic giving you the Oaken Shield as a nice, cheap way to put a ward save on that Wyvern, so your Talisman of Protection can go on the other Wyvern. This is a 2 Wyvern thing, but a nice lore if that's the path that you're going down. Also, double move on your Wyverns is excellent. So something to keep in mind as an option. I like it less than Elementalism for a normal Orc Wizard, but for the Wyvern Wizard and some of these more like flexible mounted pieces, the Battle Magic does start to have some appeal.
Yep, I'd agree. And so those are the 3 laws. Basically, Law of War got relatively better because more things are going to be fighting, I think, and the casting costs are low. So otherwise, you can do stuff like get a Night Goblin Odd Git, just a level 1, and you're paying 25 more points than you are for a Night Goblin Big Boss, which opens up the Fanatics for you, but gives you a caster. It's just, you're going to be on low values. You're probably hoping to cast Itchy Nuisance and hope that you get to cast it, but it's not a super low casting cost of 9. So you're looking to roll an 8. So I think for Orcs and Goblins, you probably a level 4 makes sense. The Orcs you might see level 1s of, and otherwise you might see a level 3 and a level 4. I think that's going to be the way that it shakes out for the list that I'm writing at the moment. One Orc caster, I think, is kind of right, and then spend the rest of the points building out your Black Orc block or getting your boar boys or something. So that's magic, right? So the reason that we're talking about that before we talk about the other characters is because if you take an Orc Weird Knob, and I think you do want to, or at least I think in the list that I'm writing, I think that's the right thing to get the +1 to cast, then you can only have one other Orc Warboss. And so you've got your Black Orc Warboss. We'll move him to the top. Let's stick him in. You can have him on foot. I've never done that. Probably wouldn't. Most of the time, in fact, all the time, I just run him on a Wyvern. He's your general. You stick a great weapon on him. You don't need to stick a shield on him anymore because the armor saves for anything that isn't cavalry or infantry is now capped at 3. And so with full plate and the troll hide armor, which we're just about to give him the Talisman of Protection, the troll hide trousers, he's got a 3-up armor save, 5-up ward, 5-up regen, hits with a great weapon. He costs us 339 points, and I think he's very good.
So, Jabe, you've run us through sort of the blocks, the building blocks. I reckon, how do we put this all together? I reckon
we're just about there. We're just about there, Danny. I'm hearing what you're saying, man. We need to move it along, Jabe. I hear you. So it's just a couple of tech pieces, and then we get to that. Because the other thing that you'll often do with your Night Goblins is, if we go to this Meat of the Army section, we're there, is your Night Goblin big bosses, instead of popping them on foot, stick them on a giant cave squig, give them a shield, light armor, and a cavalry spear.
Charm shield, baby.
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. 62 points is very cheap. He's a random mover. He's got some killing blow on the squig. He's got 3 wounds at 4 up. He's very good. And if you stick a ruby ring on it, what you can do is you can be threatening to charge something. You're like, oh, well, I didn't roll enough, so I'm going to hop off somewhere else and then cast the ruby ring, right? Because you didn't fail a charge. You haven't, yeah. So he's very good, and I'll often have him in there. So
you could also run the upgraded option, the Warboss, makes them reasonably significantly more threatening and harder to kill, just with the extra wound, the extra attack, the extra weapon skill.
Yep.
The other thing worth remembering with the super cheap big bosses, just on foot, maybe a great weapon, maybe a charmed shield, probably just a hand weapon and a charmed shield, is that it's only 35 points. And if it's sitting in a Night Goblin unit, that's kind of an extra champion. What we were saying before about big dragons, killing the champion and then losing on combat resolution, for 30 odd points, this is basically a second champion in those units, a second turn of which a big monster is not actually going to be able to win combat against all of that static res, because it's going to kill the 2 wound character that dies very easily at a different initiative step to when some of its other attacks are.
Yeah. No, absolutely true. The on foot for those guys is totally viable. So in terms of actually putting it together, this is the kind of list that I'm thinking about at the moment, where we've got a Black Orc Warboss on Wyvern running the standard build. He's not as good as he was before because he's not a 2-up anymore. He's a 3-up, and because of the challenge initiative order thing, but he's still very good. Stick the Orc level 4 in the Black Orc block that we've got. In this case, I gave him the Idol of Gork and a Power Scroll, but I think ultimately he's probably better with an Idol of Mork and a Dispel Scroll, because we don't need that, and there's going to be other armies that are punishing us with spells. And so I think extending the Dispel range out to 27 is significant. But instead of testing the meta by thinking how I'm going to react to it, I'm instead going to enhance the way that my army plays and then adapt afterwards. So same kind of logic as we were using before. Then a Night Goblin big boss, in this case on the squig with a ruby ring. Ruby ring isn't as good now because the bound power level got decreased. You're only going to get it off about 50% of the time now. Something like that. It's not as good as it was before, but still good. And then here's a Night Goblin, and he's our battle standard bearer. So in this case, we haven't maxed out on our points allowance, and we've got a level 4 and a Wyvern, and a BSB, which is pretty good, right? Then we come to core. There's our 36 block of Night Goblins that we were talking about. In this case, I have put netters on there, but you absolutely don't need to. And then you can put your BSB in there for your marching column shenanigans. Then there's another block of Night Goblins who don't have the netters and the extra numbers. And then there's a Black Orc block. And this is the flex part. You don't need to have this part in there. This could be something else in a different part of the list because we're putting in core 782. But I think the core in Orcs and Goblins is some of the best stuff in the list. So 22 Black Orcs, stick the big red ready flag on them and do the shenanigans with the motley crew. Then we've got our Orc Ball Boys, 2 Squig Hopper packs of 60 and a couple of Doom Divers. And so that gives us some scary anti-armor stuff with the artillery and the fanatics. Like if you're a high points value army running into this, you're pretty scared. Then you can pump out a lot of attacks with your Night Goblins and Ball Boys, but they're kind of a bit, weak, and that's fine. You can occupy objectives. You are often going to win a unit strength battle because you've got a 36 block, and if anything's into your Black Orcs, either you're eating it, or if they've got higher unit strength than you, then they're probably something that you did some combat res to, because that's an expensive block. And then you've got your Wyvern, which he can be anywhere. He's projecting his threat range doing Wyvern stuff. So for me, this is a reasonable list that is kind of an all-comers list that's reasonably balanced and in terms of between it and combined arms. There are a ton of other ways that you can take it, but this is the kind of list that I'm thinking about at the moment. Thoughts?
I've played against you with something similar-ish to this. This is a variation of, a long period of trial and error and sort of fine-tuning, and it terrifies me every time because it's across from the table. There's a lot to deal with, and you have to deal with it all at once. Like Night Goblins marching up, throwing fanatics at you, the Black Orcs that you're going to take a long time to kill no matter what you try and kill it with. The Orc Warboss is very tough, and then all the while you're getting shot with the Doom Divers, plus a bit of magic sprinkled in. It's terrifying. So I have a question for you, Jabe, about this.
Yeah.
Let's do on the theme of Dwellers running team events, because we were talking about that. We weren't at all talking about that. But on that theme, I want you to do a pairings matchup into the other factions with this list, and I want a red pairing, an orange pairing, or a yellow or a green pairing. So like good matchup, 50-50, bad matchup.
Let's go.
I need to list out the factions.
Also, the other big news that we didn't talk about, Cathay, people. It's out and about, and it's
they know, Jay.
The big boogeyman.
All right. Ready? Red, green, orange. Hello, you there?
Ready.
Sorry, I have to click away to read the list of factions because I can't remember them. We know what this one's going to be. Empire of Man.
Yeah, that's green, baby.
Easy money. Easy money for all the reasons I just said. Dwarven Mountain Holds.
Are we going to do the arc and the journals like expeditionary and stuff?
If they stick out to you, touch on it. But
I think you can play very well into dwarves. I've played into them 3 or 4 times. Won all of them except one of them, and I learnt from that about George Shenanigans. Green.
That seems green. That seems green to me.
Yeah.
Wood Elf Realms.
Don't know. Haven't played them. Green.
Oh.
because the reasoning being, if they are shooty, our points are all resilient, and there's a lot. It takes them a long time to shoot their way through that, and you've got a bit of ability to target them without actually targeting them. They can't do evasive into fanatics, I believe, so like you've got play into them. I think green, but I haven't played them, so I don't actually know.
I think it's maybe a little trickier. Would have been certainly trickier than that before the poison nerf. Would also have been able to take out the Doom Divers at long range pretty easily, at which point you have to try and wrinkle them out of the terrain that they bring, which with infantry was very difficult. Now, though, their poison shooting is much worse, and you can just sit on objectives and kind of force them to come and deal with you. So I think that might be greener now than it was before the new updates came out.
Yeah, I think unit strength is going to be a strength of of the Orcs and Goblins, because there's nearly 800 points sitting in core there. That's all good stuff, I think that for a lot of armies, they'll really struggle to deal with it.
How do you feel about High Elves?
Orange. I think.
Orange?
I think, but it probably could be green, given now they don't have a good ridden dragon, which was what I was afraid of previously.
It's still pretty good.
I'm going to go green. It's green, Danny. It's green. Now that the dragons are gone.
What about the ethereal dragon?
Well, I don't have. This is a weakness with this list. There is no magic weapon in the entire list. In fact, I'm going to take a brief segue, Danny. I need to talk about the Warboss and magic weapons. Bear with me. So I think that you are better off with a great weapon than you are with the choppiest chopper, which is the 35-point +1 strength, -3 AP single-handed weapon. And the reason is because the chopper's rule for Orcs and Goblins only works on mundane weapons. And the chopper's rule is very strong. It is -1 AP and a rerolled 1s to wound. So when you're with a great weapon, I would pay 50 points for a magic item that said +2 strength, -3 AP, and reroll 1s to wound. I would pay a lot for that. So often I don't think it's worth giving them a magic weapon. That does make ethereal problems. I think that there is the Orcs and Goblins have a good killing blow item, which is potentially worth taking. The bigger, choppier axe, which is basically a great weapon, still strikes last 2 hands, does give magical attacks. So if we see ethereal, this is a way to go. And killing blow, which I think killing blow probably got better because you don't have the large ridden monsters anymore. And so those points, if they really want to do the full defensive kit up, they're going to be on Cav. And you're going to see more Cav and more infantry. And so I think that got better. And so that's another way you can build him. Yeah.
So you're staying with green on Hiles. Okay, it's a strong.
Yeah.
It's a strong. We're going to revisit these. We're going to revisit these after a few months of games.
Yeah.
And the last of the good factions, Kingdom of Bretonia.
That's a orange or red. It depends on what it is. No, I'd say orange because Orcs and Goblins, assuming we're playing against Peg, multiple Peg.
You are.
The Fanatics love it. Like you're running a bunch. You've got a bunch of armor and Fanatics. If you can get them into them, and it's maybe harder to do that now that you can't release them when you're fleeing. But Fanatics don't mind Peg Knights at all. Doom Divers are not bad, and Bretonia can't charge off the Vanguard anymore. And so you get an extra turn to be able to position your Night Goblin Fanatics, your Warboss, etc. And so I don't think they're as good. And the Falcon Horn, I'm not sure that everyone's going to take it now because it's only a one-off thing. And so the Wyvern won't be as paralyzed as he was before. And so I don't think it's a good matchup. I think Bretonia are a better army, but because they are relying on armor and low model count, that is something that Orcs and Goblins play into. But the Orc and Goblin army is just not as good as a flying Peg army.
You might find that the Bretonians aren't relying on low model count anymore.
The big Knights of the Realm.
No, Men at Arms.
Yeoman Guard.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Bretonians have probably the best cheap infantry in the game.
I wrote a list that I sent to Nick just as a joke today, a few mere hours ago, and I'm just going to find it here. The core of this list, because it was for your egg comp where flying is limited, but the core of this list was 3 units of 40 Yeoman Guard. They all have stubborn. They all have shield wall. They all have 2-unit champions.
You're in the Exiles list, Jay.
Yep. I'm an Exiles, am I?
They all have stubborn, shield wall, horde, and warband, 2-unit champions apiece, and halberds for free, and hand weapon and shield. So they're ridiculous.
You say yeoman?
Yeoman Guard. So they're in the errantry list in core.
They are in the errantry list.
Oh, not errantry, sorry. Exiles.
They are in the Exiles. I thought you said I was in the Exiles.
Yep.
Right.
So it's very easy to get lots and lots and lots of bodies into Bretonia now.
Okay. Yeah, 5 points per model.
Maybe 40. Make it 40. We're not stopping until we hit 40. Maybe 50 or 60.
Right. 40 light armor shield, so they're on a 4 up.
The thing is, Danny, instead of 3 units of 40, you could have 4 units of 30.
It's also pretty good. And Exiles also have... this is very much an aside, and we shouldn't spend any time on this, but I love the demonology combo, and Exiles have access to demonology. So these 30, 40, 50 dudes flying 24 inches onto objectives and sitting on them.
Well, if the Bretts aren't bringing the flying cav and they've got a whole lot of infantry,
they're bringing both.
Okay, well, I don't know until I see it. I think Brett's are up at the top of the tree, so they're at best. They're at best in
and I feel like as long as you feel like you have play into them, that's still not.
I feel like I can get some points off them. Fanatics are pretty good at getting points. Next,
Evil Armies. The mirror match. Surely just orange. Has to be
green, baby. No, orange.
A lot of green on that table.
Warriors
baby. It's all green.
Yeah.
Warriors of Chaos.
Orange. There's a lot that Warriors can do. So it depends on the list. I think I'm more scared of the magic shooting lists than I am of like knights and cav and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you're going to see some gigantic spawns. There's so much list variance that I think it's owned.
That's right.
In general, it's again a low model count army, and fanatics do very well into that. And so, I'd say orange.
Low model combat army, yeah.
Yeah.
Beastman Brayherds? It's hard to tell, actually. I don't know much about that new book.
I don't know, but I think that the Vile Tide can do nasty things to Black Orcs, Boar Boys, and the Wyvern. So if they're running the magic variety, I think that's a red. And if they're running just kind of combat stuff, then I like my chances.
The other thing that Beastmen will get to do is pressure objectives really well. They have lots of things that can ambush, can be really fast, and in combination with really potent Vile Tide and casting bonuses, they'll probably play in a kind of similar way to the Orcs and Goblins. Bit of short range, chunks through armor, lots of units, and lots of pressure on objectives. And be interesting to see how that game actually plays out. I think your Doom Divers get under pressure pretty quickly, which might mean you have to go and meet them.
Yeah. The thing, by the way, about the combined arms and the sort of thing that I like about the list like this is you've got enough shooty sort of artillery presence that if they've got none, it is enough that they have to come towards you. And so you're kind of a middle tempo. I don't know if tempo is the right word, but if you're playing into someone who doesn't have any shooting and you don't have any shooting, then you can kind of pussyfoot around all game. If you've got the shooting, they're coming to you. But you can also, this army can actually be the aggressor as well. And so I just like the flexibility there that you can kind of play differently with everything. Just one thing that you were saying there, Chris, about the Beastmen that I think is worth mentioning is that I think ambush is now good because when you've got missions and you've got objectives, the ability to turn up on on a different spot than you starts to be very good, and especially on things where you want to hold objectives with a lot of core. So I think ambush is worth a shout in tournament.
I think it's worth revisiting, but quite a few of those objectives, things like baggage train, they're really good at pressuring. But some of the other objectives that are more central, I think ambush is still going to be tricky to get value out of there. So I'd agree that it's better, but I'm not sure that it's necessarily great. And I think some of the awkwardness is going to remain.
Yeah, so Orcs and Goblins don't really get to do any of that except beyond kick Nick. But if I were with other armies and it was kind of like, I can pay 1 point for ambush, and then on the tournament things where you have objectives, it's very strong. And otherwise, okay, I paid a point and I'm not going to ambush and I'll just roll them as normal. But anyway, we digress. Danny.
Yeah. The last of the real factions is Tomb Kings. Have you played Tomb Kings much?
I played Two Kings a few times now. Yeah, I got done at Snake Eyes by Akhtar's shenanigans.
Cool.
I think it depends on what the Tomb Kings bring, but that there's so much that they can do that is so strong that I always feel like a red against Tomb Kings. But I think a lot of that is because I don't understand how to beat them. I don't understand their weaknesses enough. On balance, I've done all right versus them overall when you put it together. But some of the advantages that Orcs and Goblins bring in terms of being able to do high burst damage with the Fanatics doesn't matter against Undead because they're just going to regen it anyway. So you just try and pick up points on whatever other stuff isn't in their big resible blocks. And so, in short, it's not something I'm feeling confident going into. And unfortunately, you see it all the time. But
I think, like every other podcast and their dog has said, Undead Infantry might be the bugbear of 1.5.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that it's Tomb King Infantry that's the worry. That Tomb Kings were already probably the best army in the game. And I think the changes on balance help them, even though their most abusive builds have been had their wings clipped, or they can't do what they were doing. But all of the inherent strength of the book is still there, and I think there's just loads of options for them as well that are going to be really just annoying. And orcs, as Jabe said, are exactly the kind of army that doesn't like people being able to heal back the damage that's been done.
Yeah.
Because those fanatics, once they've shot their shot, they're no longer really much of a threat beyond that point.
Single
And
use
so,
items.
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Tomb
You
King.
missed one of the real armies, though, Danny, which was Grand Cathay.
Yeah, true.
I don't know yet, but again, they seem like a low model count army at the moment that is relying on the armor. And orcs typically do pretty well into it. I'm going to be scared of Mao Ying. Obviously, she's pretty crazy, and the lanterns are bonkers, and the cannons are bonkers. There's a lot in Cathay. I won't be surprised if they're vying for Tomb Kings right up at the top, even with the thin list that they've got. But typically, I think when a new army comes out, you see all the good stuff and you can't yet see how it's been put together and the weaknesses of it. And so I won't be surprised to see that Cathay aren't quite as good as we think, because I think the Lancers are not so fantastic. But
I think that's right. Like, their core tax is really attacks compared to Orcs and Goblins or Exiles, which have some really nice things to just put in there.
Yeah,
I mean, Jabe, you've spent 700 points very happily on core in this list.
Yeah,
and I don't
love it. Love the core.
And you could spend more. You could chuck in some chaff. You could have another unit of Night Goblins, and that wouldn't make the list worse.
No, you could absolutely have more Night Goblins and it'd make the list better. All right, Danny, you done? Or are you going to do the Renegades?
Yeah.
No, they're not real armies.
Let's hear it. There you go.
I don't even know what they're called. Weebo Waboop. They're not real. Yeah, they're fake armies. Chris, you're going to have to list off the Renegades because I have no idea.
Alrighty, Vampire Counts, the big one.
Look, they're another one that's sitting up at the top of the tree. I don't like seeing them unless they're running Blood Knights. If they're running Blood Knights, then I fucking love it. If they've got 500 points sitting there that Fanatics and Doom Divers can eat in a single turn, that's exactly where Orcs and Goblins shine. Probably they're not stupid enough to let me do that. And all of the other stuff, we don't play well into Ethereal unless you like actually take some magic weapons. Otherwise, it's like Ruby Ring and maybe a spell. And their infantry is going to grind much harder than ours. The Black Orcs will do work and could cause a bunch of their infantry to pop. So I don't know. I don't like it. It's a red. But it's not undoable. I played against Vamps and done all right.
Chaos Dwarves.
I think they're probably in orange because you're probably just going to see another Orc army over the table with a few extra things taken, which can be pretty scary. And so, yeah, probably orange. Dark Elves. Don't know. Haven't seen them. I hear they're very sneaky and hidden underground. That's what must be going on in Melbourne. They're nowhere to be seen. But
they all got burned.
Green. I mean, they cost a lot of points. So green.
Yeah, I think the two dragons with good ward saves might be tough to get through. But especially without an itchy nuisance. But sorry,
they can't do that as well anymore. I would imagine because of the points cap.
You still get it in there. But everyone's making some sacrifice. All right, Skaven.
Yeah, green. Much as they hate it.
Lizard Man.
Yeah, green again.
And ogres?
Green again.
I think that's everything.
Yeah, so really, I think Orcs and Goblins are a very well-balanced internally army. Actually, they're not really because the Black Orcs and Night Goblins are way better. I think that they're a good army that most people don't hate playing against like they do some kind of single-dimensional army that's like just pumping out tons of magic or Peg Knights or something, Danny. And they're fun to play. You get to play them in each phase, and they fight well into most of the field. But like everything, they're just not as strong as Tomb Kings, Vamps, and Bretts, and probably Cathay. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to beat them. I'd probably, I imagine, go kind of, 40, 60, 60, 40, somewhere in there between those.
I think before they were probably the fifth. Roughly like a top 5 army, but towards the back end of the top 5, with the changes, I think it'll be hard to see, depending on where Warriors land and depending on where Cathay land, exactly how that shakes up. But I think
Yeah.
that the actual composition of what is the sort of top end of the metagame in terms of which factions probably doesn't change all that much. So I think Orcs are still going to be one of the best armies, but as to exactly which units within the book are the best and how they match up into what the other armies are taking now, I guess it'll take some time for that to sort itself out.
Yeah, for sure. We've got to see what actually happens and then how we can respond to the meta. But at the moment, this is the sort of list I'm writing. I'm going to show you a couple of other things from Orcs and Goblins, and then we'll wrap it up, I think. But there's a few tech pieces here that is what I'm calling tech pieces. Cheap Goblin Big Boss on a Giant Wolf because of the impetuous change. He can now be very good. He can go and do war machine hunting and stuff. Probably not into Ogre Loaders in Cathay or Dwarves, but maybe. And so I think that he's a great little missile. You just protect him with your boars or your squeak hoppers. And so he's pretty cool. Or just throwing him into a wizard so that they can't do stuff when you need to cast. Just lots of options for a very cheap character. There's that weird boy that I talked about, the Gazer Gork guy, which I don't think, by the way, is a high chance play. It's like only a 50-50 chance he's going to actually be able to cast it. So maybe you put him on a power scroll, but now it's 100 points. Here's our Night Goblin Big Boss. You can do the Warboss. You could put a Wallop as one-hit wonder if you're going to do a Warboss, and that could be, quite a lot of punch for that little guy. Then bolt throwers, I think, are worth considering putting in. I think bolt throwers, that's very cheap. And the best thing about it is that it forces your opponent to consider what it is that they are doing when they're playing into you. So if you've got a bolt thrower set up somewhere centrally, they might think twice about turning a flank to it where you can pierce straight down the flank. They might not care about it. It doesn't do that much all the time because you do miss a lot, but they're very good. And we've spoken about the manglers and stuff. So as a world where you go double level 4 or level 4, level 3 and a Wyvern, one of the level 4s is going to be a Goblin. So you get Black Orc on Warboss, Goblin level 4, give him some items. Staff Badoom, I think, is pretty good. Get your weird knob on a War Boar and stick him in with the boar. The Boar Boys, or just run adjacent to them so you can cast next to it. Then we've got our Night Goblins to enable our bits, and we've got our tech piece of the Goblin Big Boss. Now, the reason that we can fit all of this in is because we've stripped our Black Orcs right back. And so our Black Orcs are now a casting platform at 11 for the Orc, and can probably do some damage, but they're not going to be able to survive large combats. Still got our 2 blocks of Night Goblins, still got our Boar Boys, Hoppers, and a couple of Doom Divers. And
you want to get that Orc off his wolf, though. Otherwise, they'll just get shot out of the unit.
No, next to the Boar Boys.
Boar Boys.
Yeah. Well, you can do either. You can do either, actually. It just depends on what it is that you want to do. You stick in with your Black Orcs, but not under the new rules. Yes, you'll get shot out. That was changed in the FAQ. Or stick them in with your Boar Boys. So it's kind of either, and you kind of got a little bit of points to play around with.
Even though you've stripped back the Black Orcs, you've got like quite a lot of luxuries here that you could use to pump them back up again, right?
Yes.
Like the Ruby Ring,
Yep.
necessary. Goblin Big Boss, Night Goblin Big Boss could just be on foot, and all of a sudden your Black Orcs are back up to like 15, 16, maybe a Magic Banner. I think this is really illustrating to me just how flexible the Orc list is. Once you've got your Doom Divers and a few blocks of Night Goblins with Fanatics, you can kind of add most of the there's just loads of things in the list that you can add in, and the army still will function pretty well, and it'll still look like the kind of army people want to see on the tabletop. And so I think even the like filthiest Orc lists still kind of look like a real army, which is not the case for some of the other factions in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can do triple Night Goblins quite easily. So you just take another Night Goblin Big Boss, stick him on a squig as well. Again, there's luxury points here. It's a tech piece. And then we've got 3 blocks of Night Goblins. You could pad them up again, but this one I've also gone for 3 blocks of Squig Hoppers, all with 8. And then our Doom Divers and our Boar Boys are still there. Like there's just tons and tons of ways that you can
In
build it out
consideration,
after you've
it
got
seems like a great list to tailor to your specific play style. Like you said, you like a combined arms, but you can lean either direction, and it kind of works.
Absolutely. You can do it with Cav. You can, sorry, have I actually got Cav on him? Maybe I don't. Anyway, you can do it with Cav. You can do a level 4 Wyvern. So you can have double Wyverns. You've got our Black Orc Warboss. Then we've got our level 4. And we can still get our couple of Night Goblins. We've still got our blocks of Black Orcs. We've still got our Hoppers, Boar Boys, and Doom Divers. So you can go double Wyvern war bosses, and so you don't take the level 4 orc. You take a black orc on a wyvern and an orc on a wyvern, and you can do the same thing. You still got your black orcs, but now we play the black orc tax and have it very small. Still got our blocks of night goblins, boar boys, hoppers, doom divers. The way that I like to build it, so the characters give you a huge amount of flexibility. But Chris, I think you built a list for us. I don't know that I reproduced it. Have you got it?
Probably don't need to go through it, to be honest, because it's just the same kind of illustration of you get your Night Goblins, you get your Doom Divers. The rest is not irrelevant or not totally a wash. There are things that you want that to be able to do, but you've got so many options as to which level 4, level 3s do you want. Do you want a Wyvern or not? I think it is very powerful, but it's not strictly necessary. Do you want Black Orcs or not? And you can just play around with all of those. And as long as you have your Fanatics to punish people when they get to you, your Doom Divers to give you the option of forcing people to come to you, some magic to pump up the things you need on a given turn, then you can choose which direction to push things. You put your Boar Boys in, your Wyvern in, if you want more aggressive options. You add extra War Machines, you add a second Wizard if you want more defensive options. And perhaps more than any of the other armies, Orcs can do all of those different things within the one list pretty well. And we haven't even got as far as the armies of infamy, both of which I think are actually a little bit better now. In the case of the Trolls, perhaps a lot better than they were before.
Even with the stupidity change?
Yeah, because you're not planning on failing the stupidity test, right? You're going to get a level 10 general.
You're never planning on failing the stupidity test, stupid.
Yeah, so don't fail it.
All right, we can't get into armies of infamy. I've got a bed to get to. I've got an early morning, so let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap up, but hopefully that's useful for people. It's a very flexible army. Heaps of fun to play. There are tons of. Hey,
it's informative. It was educating and terrifying, Jay.
I am to terrify. Yeah. Tons of painting options as well, lots of alternate sculpts and stuff. Can recommend Orcs and Goblins. Think they're better under 1.5, but I think a few armies are relatively as well. So relative in the pecking order, as Chris said, they're probably staying about where they are. But I think you got game into most things that you see, and they're a hell of a lot of fun. Can recommend. But
beautiful.
I think that's it. Don't fail your strength test, people. Thanks for being the dwellers below. And I don't know, we'll be back maybe in 6 months or something when someone bothers to record an episode.
2.5.
2.5. Let's go. All righty.